Welcome back to Running on Alaska Public Media. I'm Zachariah Hughes, here with two candidates running for Assembly Seat H, representing East Anchorage, Forrest Dunbar.
Howdy.
Hey. And Mr. Tariq Gales.
How you doing?
Welcome. Thank you both for being here. Let's get right to it. And Forrest, do you want to have your opening remarks?
Sure. Hi. So my name is Forrest Dunbar. I'm running for the Anchorage Assembly, obviously for East Anchorage. I live in South Muldoon. I'm the vice president of the Scenic Foothills Community Council. This past summer, I helped start the Muldoon Farmers Market, and through that, I've gotten more involved in local politics and working with people on the Assembly and in the state legislature as well in my past job. So I think I can do a good job, and I want to create a vibrant, forward-looking community where people want to live and raise their families.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Gales, your opening remarks, please.
Hi, my name is Tariq Gales. I'm also running for the East Anchorage seat. I'm a father of three, a husband, and I'm a member of your community. I bought my home right off of Northern Lights and right on Campbell Airstrip, and I'm looking forward to hoping to earn some of your votes, and I hope to communicate with you guys effectively today, and thank you very much for watching.
Okay, we're going to go to some general municipality-wide questions, and the first question will be for you, Forrest, and then for you, Mr. Gales, we'll go back and forth. But to start out, just assuming that state aid to the continues to drop, where do you think that the Assembly should look to close budget gaps the next 3 years? And please be specific if there's cuts you have in mind or new revenue sources. Please try and get as granular as you can.
Absolutely. So there's no question. I mean, this is the number one thing people are worried about when I'm at the door and talking to people, that we have a budget crisis that we're facing. It's a little bit worse at the state than the city level, but we know that's going to trickle down to us. And so we're going to have to look for cuts. We're going to have to look for redundancies within the municipality. There hopefully should be some savings from the SAP sort of fiasco being behind us, so that's sunk cost. We're going to probably have to look to the school budget. There's no question, administrative costs there. In terms of new revenues, there's going to be some new money coming from the commercial marijuana industry, although I fear not as much as some people are hoping for. And I would like to see that funds that do come there dedicated to public safety, which is a large theme of my campaign.
Okay, and Mr. Gales, places to close the budget gap in the next 3 years.
Like Mr. Dunbar said, we are absolutely going to have to look at the school district and try to look through that and see where we can make the appropriate decisions, but also in the running of the city. Well, for the school district, they have 2 carpentry shops within about 15 minutes of each other with the exact same equipment in each shop. I can't think of any reason that we need to have that as a specific thing that we could look at as far as the school district goes. And as far as the municipality, I don't see why facility maintenance can't service the municipal buildings as well as the school district buildings. It's the same job. They do the exact same thing, and we could probably consolidate and save money long term doing that.
Okay, speaking of school districts, let's also just assume that state aid continues to drop for education. I'm curious how you'd like to see funding for public education develop in the next few years in the district.
Well, first thing that we need to do is ensure that the school district is, the members are being fiscally responsible with the dollars. I have 2 kids in the school district, so I definitely care. But if we can go through, cut some of the administration, because there's a lot of administrators for our school district, our size, way more than any other school district, comparatively to other school districts our size. So that's the first place that we need to look. Secondly, we need to just really dive into that budget. As I pointed out, one of the issues that I have with the carpentry shops, I'm sure there are several other instances in which the money is kind of being wasted. And by combining the municipal services with the school district services, I think that'll save us money long term, and we can siphon from that.
Okay, and Mr. Dunbar, public education the next few years.
I think there's a lot of agreement between Tari and myself on this, actually. And I was talking earlier about how we need to create that vibrant community. No one wants to move to a place or remain in a place where they feel their kids aren't being adequately educated in the schools. So we have to keep the funding strong, there's no question. The important thing is to keep class sizes down, keep our programs diverse, so people want to have their kids in the schools. But I think Tari's right, that looking for places of overlap between the municipality and the school district is going to be one of our biggest initiatives. Also trying to push some more of the control out to the schools and to the teachers, and allowing us to reduce the size of the administration, I think, is going to be high on everybody's list. I would rather cut from the administration and administrative buildings than cut teachers. That's the last thing I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Switching gears just a little bit, what housing policies would you like to see pursued at the assembly level and district-wide, not specific to your district?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are sort of two different housing issues. Obviously there are people who have extreme housing issues that are chronically homeless and that kind of thing. And then there's the more general affordable housing issue for affordability at almost every income level. And Anchorage has real challenges on both. I think for the former, there's the Housing First, which we'll probably talk about later. It's something that I do support in that model. For the others, I've been talking to builders, talking to homeowners, trying to reduce the burden on property taxpayers is something I really want to focus on, and also looking to Title 21 for places that we can maybe make changes. And it's an ongoing process, Title 21 right now, and trying to revise it, but we want to make sure that we don't make it prohibitively difficult to build homes here.
Okay, and Mr. Gales, housing policies you'd like to
Well,
see?
we hear a lot of talk about affordable housing, and in order to actually get affordable housing, we need to make the process of building a housing a lot cheaper, less government interference, and slowing down the process. So when we look at the permitting center, or inspectors, or code enforcement, we have to ensure that each of those individuals is enforcing the code as the code is written, and not because of their own opinion. So there needs to be clarification on exactly what certain codes mean. Title 21 definitely needs to be looked at. I think some of the policies are gonna hinder the ability to build housing. And when it takes longer to get through the bureaucracy of the permitting center, the home builders are gonna pass that cost on to the home purchaser. So I think we need to start there and get as much government efficiencies to being actually efficient.
Okay, and how about transportation and infrastructure? What transportation and infrastructure policies would you like to see the Assembly work towards?
Absolutely. For someone like me, I don't feel like there's enough coverage by the bus lines as far as that goes, but also we need to ensure that these changes we're making to the roadways are appropriate changes and they actually work. Driving down Muldoon with those new changes, I don't know if they're working because I don't see the big broad picture of it, but for me, it seems it's harder to access areas than it used to be. So when we do these changes, we need to ensure that they actually speed the roadway process and they don't hinder the movement of traffic.
Okay, Mr. Dunbar, specific policies with infrastructure and transportation that you'd push for?
Absolutely. So again, Terry and I are agreeing on a lot of things. I think we both support more bus routes and bus coverage. And we both agree that the Muldoon channelization was done in the wrong way. Not just the sort of impacts, but also the way it was done, the process, where it's a state road, and so the state made the changes, I think without adequately consulting with the neighborhoods. And the fact is that they pushed a lot of traffic onto the municipal roads. And so now you've got a lot more traffic on those side roads, and there aren't the funds available, and we haven't been working together to try to alleviate that impact. Another big thing that we're dealing with in East Anchorage is some of the through roads definitely need some traffic calming. We've had some real problems with that. Places like Beaver, for example, that we've seen some real challenges.
Okay, and we've gotten to the point where you guys get to ask questions of each other. So we'll start alphabetically, and
Okay.
Mr. Dunbar, you get to ask a question. Mr. Gales, you'll have a 45-second response and then a 45-second rebuttal.
Great. So actually this relates to what we were just talking about. So I'm curious what your position is on the Bragaw extension and how you feel about what the mayor decided to do with those funds.
Working where I work and hearing the talk within the office about how that could affect traffic, I think the Bragaw extension is fine. I don't see any major problems with it. In fact, in walking and talking to people, I haven't heard many actual discussions or complaints about what's going to take place. As far as specifically what he did with the funds, I'm not super familiar on all aspects of that. So.
Okay, Mr. Dunbar, your rebuttal.
So I guess this is somewhere we disagree. Talking to people in the College Gate neighborhood, they don't want the Bragaw extension. They think it's going to impact the trail system and impact negatively their neighborhood. It's going to increase traffic by East High School. That's why every one of the community councils in that area has opposed it. But I know there are some arguments on the other side from Providence and from the police. But for now, I think that it's not a good project as it's conceived. Also, so what the mayor planned to do is to take that funds and put it toward those funds rather, and put it towards the Port of Anchorage, which I am very supportive of. And we've also changed the way the city is approached. And this is from both conservatives and everyone agrees we need to make our request to the state to improve, to repair the Port of Anchorage, because it's really the Port of Alaska, and I think we can agree that it needs to be repaired.
All right, and so now, Mr. Gales, your opportunity to ask a question.
Yes, I know that Proposition 8, I know that you say that you're for kind of alleviating the burden on taxpayers.
Absolutely.
You didn't support Proposition 8, and I guess I want to know, and as a matter of fact, you're supported by the assembly members who kind of voted to put that loophole in Proposition 8, allowing the flexibility in the tax cap, and these are donors to you as well. And after they
I do
did
want to
that,
say it's just a 20-second
sorry.
period for asking a question.
okay,
So what is the
why don't
question?
you support lowering taxes for taxpayers?
I absolutely support lowering taxes on residential homeowners. I fear that Proposition 8 won't do that or won't do it effectively. So I think people should definitely, before they vote on it, they should look at the League of Women Voters pamphlet that was sent out that presents both sides. And if you read the side that is opposed to it, the no side, you'll see that what Proposition 8 does is it prevents us from using state one-time funds from providing tax rebates. So in some cases, we actually might have slightly higher taxes. And it also does reduce the flexibility, as you said. I think there are other ways we could look to reduce the burden on residential homeowners. One way is to look at the exemptions some of the large organizations have carved out for themselves, like, some large organizations, and that's reflected in the tax bill for the rest of us.
Okay, and Mr. Gales, your rebuttal.
The Assembly has never provided any type of a tax rebate, to my knowledge. So I don't know, why that would even be something that we think would happen. Also, one-time funds should be used for one-time projects, not long-term planning, because you can't count on them. They're one-time funds. So.
Okay, so the second round of questions, Mr. Dunbar, do you want to start?
Yes, sorry, I actually wrote this one down. Good. Tari, what is your position on Assemblyman Hall's recent proposed ordinance on storage?
As far as, can you clarify?
Yeah, so it's about storage on homeowners' properties.
Yes, okay, I thought so. Well, I think that for me, I think it's important to protect private property owner rights. If I wanted to move into a community with the homeowners association, I would have. So I think we need to allow people to utilize their property in a good way. And, creating all these boundaries, it can't be 5 feet from the curb and everything like that. Then people now have to find a place to, house the equipment that they've worked so hard to purchase. So I'm not in favor of it.
Okay,
Not
and
at
a
all.
rebuttal from you, Mr. Dunbar.
This not a rebuttal this time, agreement. I think, Tari, you and I are in agreement on this one. So as it's written now, it's too broad, and we have a lot of working class families in East Anchorage who have saved up and maybe purchased a boat or have an RV or just have an extra car. And we don't have some of the storage space that maybe some of our good friends in the south of Anchorage do. And so they put it where they put it. And so as I've been walking the doors, I've heard a lot of people say, we don't support the ordinance as it's written now. And so I don't support it either. So I'm glad that we're in agreement on that.
Okay, and the last part of this section of the discussion, your last question.
Yes. So I know you talk a lot about veterans and veterans organizations and helping veterans. I've work on claims with veterans, service-connected disabilities. What are some of the ideas you have to actually help veterans within the community?
Sure. So the first thing we can do, and we should do, and we are starting to do, is recruit veterans as they're coming out from municipal positions, like the Anchorage Police Department. And when I was working in the Guard, I know that they're trying to do that, trying to reach out to people as they transition out, and recruit them for police, for fire, for other jobs. Another thing that we can do and should do is work on chronic homelessness more generally. And there are some chronic homeless that are veterans, although we've done a pretty good job of, most veterans we've been able to get off the streets, which is obviously excellent, but we can continue to work in that capacity. The last thing we should do, and this is a little broader than just veterans, is try to keep Anchorage a welcoming place for JBEAR, to keep those soldiers and airmen here. There was just an announcement about the 425. I know we're both pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
Okay, and a rebuttal from you.
I just was going to say that, I know you're supported by a lot of unions. And one of the big issues that military members, I know you brought up military members, have is their spouses. When they come here, they have certifications in heavy machinery, okay? They have certifications in carpentry. and then they come here, and it's very difficult to find work because they have to first get into the union. You know, one of the things that I'm interested in doing is working with unions to provide a path to entering into those union jobs for military members, spouses that move to our community, because we want to retain them. We want them to stay in Anchorage. We want them to be a part of our community because they bring a lot of experience and a diverse experience.
Great, thank you both. We are back, though, to questions from me. So starting out, what is your vision, Mr. Dunbar, for Muldoon Town Square Park?
Oh, great. So I've been going to the public meetings on Muldoon Town Square Park. Like I said, I'm the vice president of Scenic Foothills Community Council, and we put a resolution supporting the park. So it's going to be an asset for the community. We're going to start by building out the front part of it. We have about $1.5 million to do that. There's going to be an ice skating ribbon. There's going to be a place to put the Muldoon Farmers Market, which I've been working on there. And we're going to have some issues with, I think, traffic and parking. I'm a little bit worried about that, but we're hopefully going to be working through those. And then over the course of the next decade or so, it's going to take a while. We're going to try to find private grants, try to find a variety of funds, and sort of build backwards towards the J-Bear fence. But eventually people aren't going to say, how far are you from the curve? I hope they're going to say, how far are you from the park?
All right, and Mr. Gales, your
This
vision.
is something I'm super excited about because I picture, you know, my wife and I, when we take our kids out to play, it's very difficult to find a really great place for them to play, walking. So this is super exciting because I picture the kids out there playing, and I picture us having events and community events in this park. I'm very excited about it. I think it'll be great for East Anchorage. It'll encourage people to move to East Anchorage. You know, I was speaking with someone whose door I knocked on, and she said that when she moved to town, that she asked the realtor, where shouldn't I move in Anchorage? And the realtor said East Anchorage. And this was about 4 years ago. And that's concerning for me because I love East Anchorage and I want people to move in. I think this will be have a very positive effect on our community.
Okay, we're going to switch over to a different kind of green. How would you like to see commercial cannabis develop in your district specifically?
Right. Well, one, as a person who grew up in a very high crime and drug-ridden area, my father's a drug addict and has been my entire life. Having been a police officer, I'm not a huge fan of marijuana at all. But that being said, the voters clearly made a decision. So I think when we make these laws or ordinances, we need to ensure that we are being non-discriminatory to these businesses and this industry because they will contribute to the tax rolls, hopefully, you know, long term. So I want to make sure that we are protecting our children in this process. I want to ensure that it's not going to be easily accessed, you know, by people that probably shouldn't have it, that have, as we do with alcohol and the red strip on it. So I just think right now the Assembly needs to be fair about this and just get it figured out.
Okay, and so Mr. Dunbar, specifically in East Anchorage, how would you like to see commercial cannabis businesses develop?
So the people of East Anchorage voted by a majority to legalize marijuana, cannabis, as did the people of Alaska. So we can't nullify that law. The regulations have to be fair, they have to be practical. And so I've spoken with a lot of people in residential areas who don't want marijuana businesses in their residential areas. And right now I do like the way that the Assembly has made it so you can't have a marijuana business in a place that's zoned residential. And I think that we should keep it that way. And for those communities, you know, for those residential areas, we won't have marijuana businesses. But there are some parts of East Anchorage that are zoned industrial, zoned commercial, and if we have appropriate regulations, then marijuana businesses can go in there, and we shouldn't, again, discriminate, as Therese said.
Okay, and community councils in East Anchorage have raised concerns over homeless campers in area parks, and I am curious, if elected, how you'd approach that issue in the Assembly.
Absolutely. So a group of friends led by a man named Samuel Johns and myself started an organization called Forget Me Not this past summer that helps connect people who are homeless to their friends and family that live outside of Anchorage. So homelessness is an issue that really is near and dear to my heart, and we've been working on that. But people don't feel safe when there are these camps in the parks, and so the key is we have to remember you can't just push them out and just kick them out and expect them to go somewhere else. They have to legally be able to be somewhere, and so we have to have housing options. And that's why I said before I support housing first, not every project, but the sort of general approach, so that as they're leaving the parks, there's somewhere they can go. They have to have somewhere to legally be.
Okay, and Mr. Gales, the question to you on campers in East Anchorage area parks.
Yes, as Mr. Dunbar said, they have to have somewhere to go. I don't know that I'm a huge supporter of housing first. Having been homeless in my life, I do understand how horrible of a situation that can be. But the housing first approach, just because you put someone in a house doesn't mean they're going to stay there. And my experience as a police officer, typically, a lot of people want that freedom. They like that freedom. As far as how we deal with it, we have to ensure that a lot of these wooded areas are not so covered and wooded that we can't see kind of what's going on in there. And so I would have interest in police officers kind of going through, kind of seeing occasionally what's going on in the back of those wooded areas.
Okay, and so right now, where do you get information from your constituents or your potential constituents about what their concerns are? And if elected to the Assembly, where do you plan on sourcing information for years to come?
Well, a lot of that's through door knocking, honestly, and you can visit the community councils. But I find that the community councils are fantastic, and I just wish more people would actually attend the meetings. But it's really going to take door knocking. But you have things like Facebook. I'm learning about Twitter and all these different things, and I've gotten a lot of communication through email, through Facebook, and things of that nature. So that's definitely going to always be a part of how I do that. But also hosting events for people to come to that can just kind of those town hall meetings so they can talk to you, and maybe doing that quarterly so I can ensure that I'm hearing the voice of all the people.
Thank you. And Mr. Dunbar, where are you getting information?
Currently, I get it, again, like through door knocking, through the community councils, through the program Nextdoor, which I recommend people looking into, which is a neighborhood-specific kind of social group, and there's a lot of talk in there about public safety concerns and that sort of thing. If I were elected to the Assembly, my goal would to be responsive, accessible. I'd have an email, obviously, a phone number, but I'd also like to have meetings in places like just Colati Brothers, just go and do my work there and be available for people to come and meet you. At the Assembly meetings themselves, I know there's a lot of interaction. I've been to many Assembly meetings. So that's another place I think that you should be able to interact with the public. But if I am elected, I'm going to keep door knocking. I've already knocked on almost 2,000 doors. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep meeting people at their doors.
Okay, and right now, which voices do you think are inadequately represented in city government, and what's your plan for bringing more of those perspectives into municipal conversations?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I haven't been asked that one yet. I think at the municipal level, the Alaska Native community is underrepresented. That would be one I would sort of point to. There hasn't been an Alaska Native person on the Assembly, and yet they say that Anchorage is Alaska's largest village now, right? That's sort of the phrase, because there is such a large community here. So that's one group I'd point to. Young people are also unrepresented, although that's sort of in part, that's our own fault, I think. We haven't been going to the community councils. We haven't been going to the Assembly. I'd like to see more of that. And then, there are some groups that do stay involved, seniors, for example, with the community councils, and we have to make sure that they aren't excluded. As we're bringing other people in, we can't be excluding other groups.
Okay. And Mr. Gales, which voices do you think are missing right now?
Honestly, I think it's the working class. And it's not because they don't want to. It's that they're so busy providing for their families, helping their children with their homework and things like that, that they don't always have time to participate in the community councils. They don't always have time to go to the Assembly meetings. And so your question on asking, creating that forum where they can communicate to you, online, that everything you can do online and make it easy for people to communicate, I think that's the best thing to do. So for me, that's probably the largest population of the community that's underrepresented and doesn't have much of a voice.
Okay, and what could possibly be my last question, what do you think the biggest concerns for East Anchorage voters, residents, and property owners are right now?
Right. Property taxes was a huge one when I'm knocking on the doors, and as a co-sponsor of Proposition 8, vote yes on 8, my wife and I worked for many years saving, living in a 900 square foot apartment with 1 bathroom and 3 children, saving to buy a home. And when I'm knocking on these doors and people are concerned, so with all that hard work, the thought that if the current administration, if the previous administration had done to the tax cap what the current Assembly administration has done, our taxes on a $300,000 home would be about $1,200 a year higher. So that is a big concern for me, and that's a big concern for many of the people whose doors I knocked on. But also crime and community policing need to actually be handled as well. So.
Okay, and Mr. Dunbar, what do you think East Anchorage's biggest issues are?
Public safety is probably number one. We've had unfortunate incidents with shootings. There was one just near my house on New Year's, and so when I'm going to door, I hear a lot about that. And I'm honored to be supported by the Anchorage Police Department's Employees Association, also the firefighters, and willing to work with them as we go forward. The budget, which is very much interrelated, is the second one. So I would say public safety and the budget are the two things I hear about the most. People are rightly concerned that the state's fiscal crisis is going to trickle down to us, and they want people to be reasonable and help us get through this time. But the last thing I'll say, even though public safety is a big concern in East Anchorage, it's a concern for all of Anchorage, and I don't want people to wrongly single out East Anchorage. East Anchorage is a great place to live, and much of it is safe and hopefully getting safer.
Okay, thank you both for keeping things so prompt, keeping things so expedient, moving right along. We've gotten to the end of the show, but I want to ask for your closing remarks. So, Mr. Dunbar, we'll start with you.
Okay. So thank you again for watching. My name is Forrest Dunbar, as he said. So Anchorage is facing a really challenging time in the next few years. But if we have the right leadership and we're reasonable and we work together, we can provide public safety, we can provide good schools, and we can do it while keeping our taxes reasonable, while reducing the burden on homeowners. If we do that, Anchorage will continue to be a great place to live and work, and I'd be honored if you'd support me on April 5th.
All right, thank you very much. And closing remarks from you, Mr. Gales.
First, thank you all for having me, and thank you all for watching. Thank you, Forrest, for doing this with me. I'm just a guy that lives in the community that cares. You know, my wife and I and my children, when we sat down and talked about this, everyone was excited because we feel like we have an opportunity to give back to a city that's given so much to us. So I'm asking for your vote and your support on April 5th during the election, and I appreciate you listening today. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you to both of you for keeping it so civil and prompt and really giving us some time to get into the issues for Anchorage and particularly East Anchorage. Thank you to both of my guests for coming on the show, and thank you in the audience for tuning in to Alaska Public Media's running program. We've heard from candidates hoping to win seats A, D, F, and H, and in our final segment, we'll be joined by candidates for seat J in South Anchorage. Stay tuned.